Boom, we are alive, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to take you on a little jungle walk today and talk about the entire Bitcoin and crypto sector. Now, I've been here for a few years. I've been here through a few cycles. And one of the things that I believe is the most valuable in this sector is to understand what it's similar to. Now, you'll always see these ideas of comparing Bitcoin's early price and the exponential growth that it's had versus, say, buying public Facebook stock. What would be a better analysis is if they compared what it would have been like to buy private or equity rounds of Facebook before it went public. This is generally what's known as venture capital, angel investing, or generally what the larger funds lead is like Series A, B, and C, when there's clearly a well-defined thematic niche. Seed and angel investing is my favorite because you're dealing with an extraordinarily large amount of asymmetric upside. So and I think one of the great stories here, if you don't know, there's a gentleman, David Cho. He's a really good artist, was living in the Los Angeles area, and early on in Facebook's growth, they invited him to paint the head offices. So he did, and when they offered to pay him, they offered to say, look, we can either give you Facebook stock options, or we can just pay you cash. And he's like, well, give me the Facebook stock options. David Cho is now worth like $1.8 billion today. This is the potential growth that you get from an asymmetric upside bet in a theme and a niche when you have very early exposure to that idea. Now, often the general public doesn't have the opportunity to enter in these early investment sides of a deal. This is what venture capital had done such a good job of doing. It kept it mostly stuck inside of the Silicon Valley area, where you had to be like dinner party friends with a lot of the same people to get into those investments. Over the last few years, prior to this, you started to see things like WeFunder, crowdfunding, Seed Stars, these other companies that allowed you to raise and sell equity for an early company by providing products or equity in the company. Fast forward 2017, the first ICOs, the first NFTs that were launched. This is when it became global and decentralized. And the reason why this offers the greatest amount of opportunity is because there is instantly so much room for growth in the network participation that takes place during the explosive growth of technology as it gets adopted. You were never once rewarded, aside from the utility of whatever Facebook offered you, in terms of you making it valuable by showing up, inviting your family and communicating with them and posting your data on there. All of those things are what made Facebook valuable, yet you were not rewarded, aside from utility, whatever that means. Not much utility in Facebook, aside from, hey, mom and dad, I love you. That's where I talk to my family, basically. So because of this, now what we're witnessing in this sector and have been seeing for the last 5 years is that the average everyday person can partake in venture capital. Now, in venture capital, you can roughly assume that 9 out of 10 projects are going to fail. Okay, well, that means that if you make 10 bets, you're going to get one right. That's a pretty good, easy number. A monkey could probably make that work. And in fact, I'm sure there's studies that have been done where monkeys or mice actually complete these tasks with a great amount of certitude, because when you get one right, it makes up so much of the other 9 that you got wrong that it doesn't matter. So this is a game of persistence. This means you must keep showing up, and you are not to actually ever really sell your bets. Had David Cho decided to sell his private early equity Facebook stock, which was so difficult, and this is one of the advantages to the older system, is that if you were in an early private equity deal, good luck selling it. It would be very difficult. You have to find an accredited investor who understands the theme and could pay a large amount of capital for that stock or that share. That's why IPOs, or these public offerings, became so popular, is because it's like the official form of the pump and dump. But now, you are again rewarded for the early participation in any of these companies from the get-go, right? So their success is also closely tied to the interest of the community that's investing them. That's why we've seen such amazing growth for companies like Axie Infinity. is that not only are they growing in their network participation, but the people who are on that platform are being rewarded monetarily for doing so. This is the perfect storm for the average everyday person to make asymmetric growth, where you can invest $1,000 and walk away with $1 million. That's what would have happened with Axes. Had you invested on November 11th, $1,000 in 2020, you would have approximately $1 million today from that investment. This is a repeatable process. It has happened time and time again. This is what is generally called venture capital. And I think for everybody out there, understanding the time that it takes for Facebook to become this global monolithic company that you would want to be invested in, you had to sit on your diamond hands for almost 2 decades. And that's what David Cho was able to do. Right now, you're being offered early exit liquidity. You're like, oh, I got a 5X, I got a 10X. I should take those profits, right? Should spend it on something. I've never had this much money before. Or should you just keep acquiring assets? Keep holding on to the assets, because we're just getting started. This is just the beginning. This is so early for the development and the growth of this digital ecosystem that's being built right now that we are just seeing the foundations put in. You're going to sell yourself short if you leave too early. I think obviously risk mitigation, removing your principal capital is always a smart way to go when you have that growth. But just in general, you might actually be exiting something that all you had to do was sit tight and walk away from, and you would have done way better than anything else you could have imagined. There are countless stories like this, and patience will be one of your greatest assets in this investment world. Anyways, I just wanted to take you guys on a little jungle walk, share some of the day, some of my thoughts, and the consistency of why I show up and try to communicate and share the value of my learning process with each of you. There's a lot of mistakes I made along this journey to come to a conclusion that anybody can repeat. Any single person out there, you can make millions of dollars. It's really easy. You find a theme early, you invest, and you walk away, buy right, and sit tight. All those other mistakes of trying to buy here and sell there, and is this asset better than that one? Should I be trading it for this one because it's overvalued and the other one is undervalued? You will always lose. 95% of you will always lose going down that path than just buying right and sitting tight. So why not make this game as easy on yourself as possible and focus on strategies that are not only built off like rudimentary repetition, but anybody can achieve them. And we have over 100 years of data that shows it working. So I'll suggest 2 books again for everyone out there. If you have not read these, you can find them for free on YouTube by typing it in, Dan Dow and 100 Baggers. They're amazing books that go over data of these types of investments in the last 50 to 100 years. And I think it's really important to understand that this game has been going on longer than you. It will continue to go on longer than you will, most likely. So let's bet on that long-term game staying the same. Anyways, Teal with the Arcane Bear. Thank you for joining us on today's Jungle Rant and Walk. Why this is the greatest opportunity that everyone is being given the opportunity to participate in, except New York citizens or residents, apparently.